So there's a few scripts. We haven't really looked at the scripts at all in our project folder. We're going to do this a little bit as we add more stuff. But if you look at these, if in the scripts folder, you'll see a bunch of scripts. They have different names. Most of them are named to kind of sound like what they're going to be used for. And there's a couple things that we can add in here just to make the game easier to debug. So there's a reset script, which just lets you reset your player to the beginning of the scene. And so this is really just for debugging. You probably wouldn't want to have this in your main game, but if you stick this into your level, you can reset the level. So if you fall off the world, or if you get lost or do something, you can just reset the level. There's also an exit script. This will let you exit the game without having to hit the command period. This is also a good thing to have for your game for to have people be able to actually quit out of the game. So these two scripts are really simple. They don't really do that much, but it'll give us a chance to show how to add a node and append a script to a node, and it'll make testing a little bit easier. And then there's also this respawn player script. This is what we're going to do to make it so that if we fall off of our game world, we'll be able to respawn the player. So I'm going to add these three scripts in to make the game work a little bit better and easier to test. So to add these scripts in, I'm going to click on my main level node, and I'll add in a just generic node. So just the main sort of like node here. Which part did you miss? Okay, so I'll have to review. So I'm recording, so you can review the video, and I'll review the steps with you. But I can't go back over that whole thing right now. What? Okay, let's talk about the node part. So we're adding some basic scripts. These scripts don't have like 3D position, so we're just going to add a generic node so that we can attach the scripts to the node. So to do that, I click on the main level node, and then I click the plus button. And then I'm just going to select the very first node in the node tree that's just called node. It's just a generic node that I can attach a script to. So that just makes a gray little node. I'm going to drag this up to the top of the level. It doesn't really matter where you put it, but I like to organize my scripts up at the top. So for this one, I'm going to put reset, and I'm going to add the reset script here. So when you're adding a script, you look over the inspector, and the script is always the last parameter at the very bottom of the inspector. And so to add a new script, you can click on the folder and look through the scripts here. So if I'm looking for reset, if I type in reset, it'll come up. That's one way to do it. I can also click on this drop down and go to load, and then go into the scripts folder and look through the scripts here. So this one is the reset. This script will reset the game if you hit the R button. So it's pretty straightforward. It just is mostly for testing. But if we run the game, you'll see this is useful if you have a really big level, or if I fall off the edge of the scene. If I hit R, it just resets the level so I can keep testing. If you want to change that R value, so if you look in this script, it uses this event reset, and this is set in the input map. So if you go to project and go to project settings, and then go to input map, you'll see that all these actions are linked to different keys. So if I look for reset, it's down here. You can see it's mapped to the R key. And so I can change that mapping by deleting this or editing it. So if I click edit and I hit a different key like T, I can choose a different key, and I can also say it has to be option T. I can kind of change this map. For now, I'm going to leave it the same. So now I'm just going to repeat that process for my exit script. So I'm going to go to level 1. I'm going to add a generic node. I'm going to drag it up here. I'm going to call this exit. And I'm going to go to my scripts and look for exit. And there we go. And this will just exit the game when you hit the escape key. And this will work in the scene or in the build. So this is useful if you're making like a really simple game and you don't have like a big UI and stuff like that. I can just get out of the game by just hitting escape. So that just makes it easier for testing. And if you publish a game, you can, include instructions to say hit escape to exit or whatever. So since we don't have time to like build a huge game with lots of UI and stuff like that, that's just an easy way to get out of the game. Okay, last script I'm gonna add is a respawn script. This is gonna trigger if we fall below the world. If you have a world where you can't fall below the world, then you don't have to worry about this. But in most of these sort of simple games that we're going to build in this class, you're probably going to have parts where you might fall outside of the world. So we want to respawn the player. This one, we do need what's called an area so that we can detect if the player has fallen below the game. So to make this part, I'm going to go to the level 1 node again. And this time I'm going to add what's called an area 3D. This is sort of like the collision shape that we added for our mesh instances last week, but it doesn't collide with the player, so the player can walk through it. It just detects when the player is inside of it. So I'm going to create an area 3D, and I'm going to call this respawn. And I'll move this up here as well. And so you can see this has a warning because we haven't added a collision shape. So just like the collider we added to the ground and to our trees, we need an area, we need a shape to define this area. So I'm gonna click the plus button again and add a collision shape. So I'm just gonna search collision, choose collision shape, and click create. And then I'll choose a big box for this collision shape. So I'm gonna make this like as really big. You want it to be as big as the scene so you can catch the player. So I'm just gonna make it like 500x and 100y and 500z. How do you do which part? So I'll just delete this. So when you add a collision shape, so any area or static body has to have a collision shape attached to it to define the shape. So when I can click on the area and click the plus button. Almost everything in Godot is hitting the plus button because you're always just hitting nodes, and you just hit the plus button. You can also hit Command A to add a node. And then I need to add a collision shape, so I type in collision and then choose collision shape 3D and click create. Do you get that? What respawn thing? Where do you see respond? Oh, okay, you're a couple steps back. So I'm just gonna keep going. You can review the video or we can go over it during workshop time. So I'm gonna add my collision shape. I'm gonna add a box shape. I'm gonna make the box really big so it'll catch the player if the player falls below the scene. So I'm gonna make X 500 and Z 500. I'm gonna make the Y like 50. And then I'm just gonna move this down below the scene. So if I zoom out, you'll see this is just like a big area below the main scene. And if the player enters this area, it's gonna trigger the game to reset. So there's a couple other things we have to do to make this work. And this is a good thing to review from last week. So one thing to do is we have to make sure that the collider and the player are gonna interact with each other. So I can click on this area and then go to the collision area under collision object 3D. And I have to make sure that it's on the right layer. So let's see, I don't think I have a collision layer, so I'm just gonna, or a respawn layer, I'm just gonna put this on platforms. even though it's not technically a platform, we know that the player interacts with platforms. And I'll turn player off. And then the mask is what it's looking to interact with, so I'll just leave that on player. So the other thing I have to do is I actually have to connect, well, first I have to add the script. So for this script, I'm looking for the respawn player script. And then if I click on this script, you'll notice it has something called on body entered and something called respawn point. So we need to add in both of these to make this script work. The on body entered is an event for when the player body enters this area. And our events are in the node section of Godot. So we didn't look at this last week, but we'll look at it a little bit today and we'll look at it again next week. The node section in Godot has all these different signals or events. So when some things happen, we can connect it to our code. So the body entered is good to use for our player because our player is a character body. And so we can detect when a body enters this area, we're going to change the position of that body to our respawn point. So I'm going to double click on this body entered. And then this is a little tricky, but basically I just need to connect this event to itself. So I'm going to click on the event here. And then I can just click connect here, or if you want to double check to make sure you're connecting to the right function, click on pick and then choose the function from the script. When you click connect, you'll see a little green arrow appear, and this shows you that your area is connected to the right event. Okay, so then we just have to make a respawn point, which is just the point in the scene where we want our player to respawn to. And that can just basically be where the player starts. So I'm going to go to where the player is. And so for this, I'm going to add just a node 3D. So a node 3D doesn't have anything in it, but it does have a position. So we'll be able to copy the player position and use this as our respawn point. So I'm going to create that node 3D. I'm going to move it up here next to our respawn area, but not in the respawn area. And I'll just name this respawn point. Doesn't really matter what you name it. And then for the transform, let's see. It's basically where the player is. So that's fine. I want it to be where the player is. So I'm going to leave that. And then I just have to add this to my respawn script. So I'm going to click on the respawn area again. And then if I scroll up to the top, you'll see this respawn point here. When we add a script, we get these values that are used by the script where we can drag and drop things from the editor. So I'm going to drag this respawn point into this respawn point variable. Okay, so that was a lot of steps. But now if I fall off my game for some reason, when I hit this area, it'll respawn me back into the game. So that's a good thing if you have big gaps between your platforms in your game. If you don't have that, then you probably won't need it, but you might want to have that in the game. Okay. So those are just a few things to add. They aren't necessary, but they do make testing the game a lot easier, and it'll make it easier for people to play the game if there are, gaps in the platforms or other things like that. All right, I'm going to stop here.